We live in a strange time for PC hardware. The top of the graphics card market has become a space race of eye-watering prices, with flagship cards costing more than a decent used car. This has created a great divide, leaving the vast majority of gamers hunting for value in the sub-$500 space. But when you venture into this territory, you're forced to make compromises. Nvidia, AMD and Intel all offer a decent selection of cards here, but they almost always come with a catch. More often than not, that catch is VRAM. Now, VRAM isn't the be-all and end-all of GPU performance, at least not to the degree that some internet comment sections would have you believe. But we certainly understand why it matters, and the very real, very frustrating performance wall you can hit when a game's appetite for memory exceeds what your card can offer. And that, well, brings us to one of the most controversial cards on the market today, the 8GB version of the Nvidia RTX 5060 Ti. So why are we testing what is, let's be honest, the less popular model? Because, well, it exists for a reason. It's more affordable than its 16GB sibling, it's in plentiful supply, and you will frequently find it inside pre-built systems from major manufacturers trying to hit a specific attractive price point. It is, for many, the default entry point into the latest generation of Nvidia GPUs. Today, we're taking the Inno3D RTX 5060 Ti Twin-X2 8GB and putting it through its paces with one strict rule. Every game that we test is completely free to play. Yes, they have battle passes and shiny skins, but if you want to download them and jump straight into the action, it won't cost you a single penny. Our goal is to answer one simple question. If your entire gaming world revolves around the biggest esports and kind of free-to-play titles, is spending extra on the 16GB model a waste of money? But before we get into all of that, here's a quick word from this video sponsor.
This sucks. I wish I had an upgrade.
You have summoned the gaming genie. What is your wish?
Better gear? For an upgrade?
Your wish is my command. Zone Elite XL Matte, smooth, comfortable, spill resistant, and the sleek Zone Matte for precision gaming. NZXT Function Elite Mini TKL, magnetic switches, compact and precise. Featuring per-key adjustable actuation with 40 points of sensitivity ranging from 0.6mm to 4mm to fit your individual needs. Lift Elite wireless mouse, lightweight, responsive and ultra fast. Capsule Elite mic, pro quality audio, crystal clear, every game chat will be flawless. Genie approved upgrades. Make your gaming wishes come true with NZXT. Find out more by clicking the link in the description below. Now, before we dive into the numbers, let's talk about our test setup because it's crucial to understanding the results. We're pairing this affordable graphics card with a very powerful CPU, an AMD Ryzen 9 9800X3D, and 32GB of DDR5 6000 CL30 memory. Now, you might think that, well, this is an unbalanced combination, but it's entirely by design. We want to create a scenario where the CPU is never the bottleneck. Our goal here is to isolate the RTX 5060 Ti and push it to its absolute limit, showing you the maximum possible performance you can expect from this GPU. Our arena for today is the world of 1080p. We're testing on a high-quality AOC Full HD gaming monitor capable of high refresh rates, because that's the natural home for a card like this. The games are a murderer's row of the most popular titles on the planet: PUBG, Counter-Strike 2, Apex Legends, Fortnite, and Valorant. These games dominate the charts and have millions of active players every single day. They are the bread and butter of the budget-conscious gamer. For each game, we'll be testing across a range of built-in quality profiles from the lowest competitive settings to the highest cinematic presets. Where necessary, we've created our own custom settings to strike a balance between visual fidelity and high frame rates that are non-negotiable in competitive gameplay. So let's see if, well, 8GB is enough. First up, Apex Legends. This game is all about fluid movement and rapid target acquisition, making a stable high frame rate absolutely essential. We tested using the game's individual settings from very low all the way to max, and the results were frankly staggering. The RTX 5060 Ti 8GB was effectively pinned at the game's 300 FPS engine cap, scoring 299 frames per second across the board, with a few frames lower on max, now sitting at 294 FPS, which is still bordering on the engine cap. The only other change that we saw was in the 1% lows, which dipped from 255 FPS on low to a still buttery smooth 215 FPS on max, showing that VRAM was never a major issue. On this one, there is, well, no compromise needed. Just max this game out at 1080p and, well, enjoy the ride. The performance headroom is so significant that if you're using a 144Hz or 165Hz 1440p monitor, you could easily step up the resolution and still maintain a flawless high refresh rate experience. Next, the undisputed king of tactical shooters, CS2. This is a game where performance is everything. Professional players will sacrifice every ounce of visual quality to gain a few extra frames and shave milliseconds off their input latency. Even on our custom very high settings with upscaling enabled, the card delivered a phenomenal 342 FPS average, with 1% lows of 256 frames per second. Dropping down to the low preset, which many competitive players prefer for maximum clarity, saw the frame rate soar past 500 FPS. With this, the 8GB card is complete overkill for Counter-Strike 2 at 1080p, in the best way possible. You have total freedom. You can either push for ludicrously high frame rates at low settings to satisfy the most demanding 360Hz monitors, or you can crank up the visual settings for a prettier experience without ever worrying about dipping below competitive grade performance levels. Next up comes a real technical showcase. People might dismiss it as a cartoonish game, but Fortnite, running on Unreal Engine 5, is one of the most graphically demanding and scalable titles on the market. This is where we expected to see the 8GB of VRAM finally start to sweat. At the Epic plus RT preset with ray tracing enabled, the card dropped to a very playable but not competitive 72 FPS. If you're on a standard 60Hz monitor, you can absolutely enjoy the full visual splendor of this game. However, for competitive players, the gains from disabling ray tracing are immense, catapulting performance to 145 FPS, and then drop into the low preset, then double that again to over 280 frames per second. With this one, Fortnite still looks and plays great, even at lower settings, as you're mostly sacrificing advanced lighting and shadow effects. For a high refresh rate experience, we'd recommend a custom mix of medium and high settings with shadows on low. You'll easily stay above 144 frames per second, and the 8GB of VRAM handles it without a problem. Next up, PUBG. PUBG. The game that started the Battle Royale craze, and is, let's be kind, known for its sometimes janky performance. We went in expecting a struggle, but the card held its own remarkably well. Even on the demanding Ultra preset, we saw an average of over 200 FPS. Dropping to high pushed that to 250 FPS, and by the time that we hit medium, low, and very low, the frame rate was locked at around 280 frames per second, indicating that we were now limited by the CPU and not the GPU. Despite its reputation, PUBG runs exceptionally well on this card, and you can comfortably play on high or even ultra settings and maintain frame rates well north of 144 FPS. The 8GB of VRAM was simply not a limiting factor in this title at 1080p. Finally, Riot's tactical hero shooter, Valorant. This game is designed from the ground up to run on a potato, prioritizing performance and accessibility above all else. The results here were almost comical. We saw north of 500 FPS pushing nearly 600 frames per second, with barely any difference between the lowest and highest graphical settings. The 1% lows dropped by a mere 18 FPS between different tests, and it's a testament to Riot's optimization, but it also shows how wildly overpowered a card like the RTX 5060 Ti is for a title like this. Our verdict on this one is don't even think about it. Max it out. The performance is so high that the settings are frankly irrelevant, and you will be able to saturate any monitor ever made with those all-important glorious frames. So the benchmark numbers are clear, but it all comes down to cost. The NVIDIA RTX 5060 Ti 8GB launched with a $379 MSRP, while the 16GB version had a $429 MSRP. Here in the UK, the real world pricing actually reflects that. The Inno 8GB model we tested today is available from Scan Computers for just $368.99, while the 16GB version from the same brand costs $428.99. That's a £60 difference. But let's put that into perspective. For a card at this price point, £60 represents a more than 16% increase in cost. In a budget-focused build where every pound is being carefully allocated, that's a huge chunk of change. Just to point some things out, that money could be reallocated to parts that affect your entire day-to-day experience with the PC. That £60 is almost exactly the price difference between a quality 1TB NVMe SSD and its 2TB counterpart. With AAA games now routinely demanding over 150 gig of install space, that extra terabyte isn't just a luxury, it's a significant quality of life upgrade, saving you from the constant, frustrating cycle of uninstalling and reinstalling games to make space. And yes, while we aren't talking AAA titles today, even some of the titles that we have tested are gaining in, well, file size. Even more critically, that money could be the difference that bumps you up a CPU tier, perhaps from a Ryzen 5 to a Ryzen 7, or even an X3D CPU that will help to propel frame rates anyway. A stronger CPU provides better 1% lows across the board, improves multitasking, and ensures that your GPU has the headroom to stretch its legs and perform at its peak for years to come. In that scenario, you're actually improving the entire system's foundational performance. So it's not an insignificant amount of money. But the question is, what does that extra £60 actually buy you? Well, it buys you insurance. It buys you the peace of mind to not worry about your VRAM limitations. But it's not the kind of insurance you hope to never use. It's the insurance that guarantees you can download the next big graphical showcase in 2026, head straight to the settings menu, and confidently click Ultra Textures without a second thought. It's about buying your rig a longer, more versatile lifespan, transforming it from a specialized esports tool into a true do-it-all gaming machine that won't feel outdated the moment the next generation of games arrive. After all that testing, I must admit, I am actually genuinely surprised though. The RTX 5060 Ti 8GB gets a lot of flack online, and let's be fair, even from us when it launched, the consensus in a world of ever-growing game sizes was that releasing an 8GB card at this price point felt short-sighted. But our results today, well, kind of speak for themselves, and they tell a very specific, very compelling story. For a dedicated 1080p, competitive and free-to-play gaming machine, this is actually quite a phenomenal card. We weren't just hitting a playable 60 FPS, we were in the stratosphere, pushing 200, 300, even 500 plus FPS in the world's most popular games. In this specific arena, the 8GB of VRAM presents absolutely no bottleneck. Its performance is, for all intents and purposes, indistinguishable from its expensive, or more expensive, 16GB sibling. This brings us to the, I guess, classic trade-off, the one that defines the entire mid-range GPU market, not just the 5060 Ti. Affordability versus future-proofing. So who is the card actually aimed for? Well, I think it's clear to see from today that the card is for the focused esports competitor, the weekend warrior, the student building a rig purely for Valorant and Counter-Strike. It's for the gamer whose library consists of Apex Legends, Fortnite, Rocket League, League of Legends, and the countless other free-to-play titles that dominate the gaming landscape. This is the player who lives in Discord, prioritizes frame rates over cinematic visuals, and understands that in competitive gameplay, a higher refresh rate and lower latency are more valuable than ultra-quality shadows. If that's you, then yeah, the 8GB RTX 5060 Ti is actually an excellent value-driven purchase. You save that 60 quid, you reinvest it into a, I don't know, better mouse or a larger SSD, or, as I mentioned, a better CPU. And then you sacrifice absolutely nothing in the games that you actually play every single day. On the flip side, who should avoid this card at all costs? This card is not for the graphical tourist. It's not for the gamer who pre-orders the next big AAA blockbuster and wants to experience it on day one, exactly as the developers intended. If you plan to explore the cutting edge of PC graphics like in titles like Star Wars Outlaws, Cyberpunk, the upcoming GTA 6 game, or whatever the next visually stunning single-player epic is, the 8GB limitation will become immediately and painfully apparent. Demanding titles, especially those built on Unreal Engine 5 with path tracing enabled, can easily chew through more than 8GB of VRAM, even at 1080p. The consequence isn't just a lower average frame rate, it's noticeable stuttering, asset popping, and poor 1% lows as the card frantically shuffles data. In that world, you'd be forced to turn down texture quality, the one setting that most dramatically impacts visual fidelity. And that is a compromise that many are unwilling to make. For this gamer, the 16GB model isn't a luxury, it's the mandatory entry fee. Ultimately, the 8GB model is a scalpel, a precision tool perfectly suited for a specific known task. The 16GB model is a sledgehammer, a more versatile tool, better equipped to handle a wider range of unknown challenges. The choice comes down to being brutally honest about the games that you play today, and the games that you realistically see yourself playing tomorrow. Are you building a dedicated free-to-play machine, or a do-it-all rig ready for any graphical challenge that comes its way? So there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this look at the often overlooked 8GB version of the NVIDIA RTX 5060 Ti. It's not the VRAM starved disaster that some might paint it as, but more as a specialized card that serves its target audience brilliantly. If you did enjoy our findings, a like and a sub to the channel would be amazing. And if you love what we do, we've got a Patreon where you can support what we do while also getting access to some really cool extras too, including behind the scenes content, super special area on our Discord, bi-weekly game nights, and so much more. The link is, as always, down below. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.